This is the Grapple of Your Eye Show, episode 25, Seymour Meerkatsu Yang. Welcome to the Grapple of Your Eye Show. My guest today is Seymour Yang, or as you may know him, Meerkatsu. He is an awesome graphic illustrator, a fightwear designer, a BJJ Blackbelt, and an author, which we'll get into later. So welcome to the show, sir. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us this week.
Thank you, Brett. Yeah, nice to be on. Thank you. Yeah, I literally just jumped out the shower because I've just been teaching a 2-hour class, and then stuffed some ramen noodles in my face, and then come on this show. So it's really nice to have a late night chat. It's always good.
Thank you for fitting us in. Thank you for fitting us in. Right, our first question to anyone that's been here for the first time: where did martial arts begin for you?
No, that's a nice question. It's a good story to this one because being Chinese or Chinese descent, I was born in the UK. My parents came from China in the 60s. You can't help but grow up with the legends of the kung fu and the triads and all that sort of mystique. Certainly in the early 70s, all the kids in school were talking about it. It's popular films, all that around. But the irony is, my parents wanted to steer me away from that. To them, being in a doing kung fu and doing Chinese martial arts was seen as what the street kids did, the bad kids and the gangsters and
Okay,
the naughty
yeah,
people did from Hong Kong and China. That's what they did, and I don't think that's contestable. I think that's very much accepted. It certainly wasn't like a middle class sport that nice gentlemen and women did. It was what the thugs did, right? So, and legend has it that that transferred into the UK and in the diaspora around the world. So you can understand if you're an immigrant coming into this country in the 60s and 70s, you don't want your kid to hang around the thugs and the bad guys and dealers and all that sort of stuff who
mm,
all happen to train in kung fu centers. Allegedly, of course. I don't have any facts
yeah,
of it, but I think, general consensus is that it wasn't some of it was used for bad as well as good, shall we say.
yeah,
So there's me, a young kid growing up. I'm desperate to learn kung fu because everyone talks about Jet Li, Bruce Lee, all this sort of legends, the movie style lessons, and I wasn't allowed. Wasn't allowed. Mum, can I? And I thought I turned my attention to judo. Wasn't allowed. None of that. You like a good immigrant family. You're going to sit down and study and become a doctor. Clearly, that didn't happen for me. Apparently, you need something like brains to be a doctor. I don't have the brains for that. So, but as soon as I turned 18, I did go to university, and the first thing I did during Freshers' Week was to sign up to the first martial art that would appear when I walked into the Freshers' Fair, and that was Kyokushin Karate. I knew nothing about karate, nothing about Kyokushinkai. I joined up. I realized there were a bunch of absolute nutters, and I loved it. Okay, so doing karate, finished university, having done 3 or 4 years of karate, and then I got into a scuffle with someone. He was a sort of a friend of a friend, and there was a sort of go on then, show us what your karate is all about. And he just sort of grappled with me in a sort of non-grapply sort of way. He just sort of pushed me around, shoved me, grabbed my. I didn't know what to do. What am I going to do? Karate kata my way through his attacks.
yeah,
So that really opened my eyes to realizing that karate really wasn't, for me anyway. My experience wasn't that effective as a fighting art. I'm sure there are many karate experts who are very, very good fighters, but for me, it didn't work for me. So that started the journey to look for something that I thought, well, maybe there's something that's more applicable. I need something more grapply because he showed me that, you know, doing
yeah.
all the straight line punches wasn't a thing. So I looked up Japanese jiu-jitsu because I just did a little bit of research. This is way before the internet, by the way. We're talking like the
Yeah.
mid 1990s. I joined Japanese jiu-jitsu, loved it, did it for about 10 years, 10, 11 years. I got up to a black belt, second dan, I think, second dan.
Yeah.
I started running my own classes. I loved it. Um, and then just about the early 2000s, the buzz was all about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. UFC had happened, and people were starting to join the very first Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu classes that opened up in London. So, being in the martial art community, and the very first forums were starting to open up, all the buzz was about MMA and martial arts and BJJ. And I was doing this old-fashioned thing called Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, but I was very curious. So
Yeah.
I joined my first class in 2003 at Carlson Gracie's, back when they were training in Royal Oak. And it's one of those moments where you just go, wow, what have I been doing all this time? This is amazing. And I got absolutely manhandled, and you know the usual story that everyone talks about on their first class. You're just ragdolled, and you know in the early 2000s, BJJ, there were no nice fundamental classes. There were no, hey, here's your foundation package with your free gi and your starter pack, and join in with this six-part. No, no, it was not. You were thrown in with all the,
Survival.
yeah,
Yeah.
shall we say, guys who just loved to grapple. Okay, and there were bouncers there, there were doormen, there were all sorts of people there for whom just being physical was a normal part of their life. For me, Mr. Middle Class Chinese boy, oh, I
Right.
know about the Japanese Jiu-Jitsu. No, it really opened my eyes. So since
That was
2003,
oh,
that's how long I've been training. It's 2025 now, so 22 years. And that,
okay.
in a nutshell, is I have done other martial arts, a little bit of kickboxing, tiny bit of Aikido, tiny bit of judo. But for me, BJJ, from the very first day, that was the one I fell in love with. And it's been my life ever since. It's all I think about obsessively for 22 years. That's a love affair. My wife thinks says I'm married to jiu-jitsu. So there you go. That's funny. I met jiu-jitsu before you. So, it's actually my first love.
So what was then the someone like you say, you've done traditional jiu-jitsu, you got your black belt in it, and you've moved up the ranks through that and spent years doing that, and then you say you've got your Brazilian jiu-jitsu has come along and you're going now. What did you find? Obviously, like you said, the grappling and the rolling is probably a big thing because I did Japanese jiu-jitsu for a few years, and I think it was the lack of that was what sort of moved me away from it in the
Sparring,
end
simply
because the
sparring. Yeah, just no
yeah,
sparring.
the sparring side of it. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, breakfall's brilliant, and we could all do it at exactly the same time, and it was like synchronized. That kind of done my head in a little bit. I couldn't cope with that sometimes because you had to be spot on when they did it. It was the I forgot what they're called now. The overall organisation, but their breakfall thing. It would call out, and you did it all left, right, and all
Yeah.
that all at the same time. But for you, as someone like as a black belt of that moving across, what came across with you? What soon got left behind?
So when I was teaching Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, I knew it was a calling. I do love teaching. Maybe we can
Mm,
discuss that a bit later. But I found that after black belt, to progress in Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, it became more and more esoteric. There was a lot more kata-based work, a lot more weapons-based work, a lot more set pieces that was supposed to be more culled from more traditional elements of studying that style of martial art. But for me, I felt removed further and further away from
mm,
real stuff. If in Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, syllabus is really, really nice for the early belts. The early belts is like you get strangled, learn how to disarm yourself. Somebody punches, clocks you around the head, learn to trap an arm, do a throw. Lots of wrist locks, lots of things that are, in my head, very, very practical, very simple, easy to do. And there's a
yeah,
lot of crossover between Japanese Jiu-Jitsu and the original Gracie brothers syllabus of how they teach self-defense, and then they say that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was originally a self-defense fighting art. Well, guess what? That came from Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, which
yeah.
crosses over. I did a lot of research on this for my book, which we'll talk about later.
So,
And there's a huge amount of crossover. And then judo comes in, but judo is
mm,
really jiu-jitsu, but modernized, and there's so many swirling elements in there. Um, but what I liked about Japanese Jiu-Jitsu is that it was very, very regimented. You had to do the techniques absolutely perfect. So the discipline aspect was a million miles away from sparring, because in sparring you just don't do techniques perfectly. They just don't look perfect. So I couldn't get my head around that. I could not do Japanese jiu-jitsu techniques in BJJ, certainly not as a beginner. And going through the ranks, I pretty much admitted that, okay, Japanese jiu-jitsu is useless. Okay, and I put air quotes because I've now come back full circle. And when I'm teaching BJJ, I do go back to my Japanese jiu-jitsu training thinking, do you know what? There's a lot of theoretical crossover between what they were teaching us and
Mm.
what I'm doing at the higher levels of BJJ, or the more conceptual levels. After all, like you said, a joint can only lock in a certain way, a
Yeah.
wrist can twist in a certain way, the strangulation can only happen in a certain way. There's only a limit to what you can do to the body. So there's huge amounts of crossover. And in fact, I've done seminars, BJJ seminars, where I've just culled a whole ton from my Japanese jiu-jitsu stuff and transferred it into a Brazilian jiu-jitsu sport setting, which has been a wonderful little side mental side project for me. So I think there's a lot to be gained. And if people say Japanese jiu-jitsu is no use, then they haven't spoken to all my friends who were attacked, mugged, sexually assaulted, and they've used Japanese jiu-jitsu to defend themselves quite ably and have lived to tell the tale. And the same with BJJ, right? They're all
Yeah.
useful. It's the person who has the knowledge. It's up to them to get out of that situation using that knowledge. And some people, they're just not fighters. They're not able to do that. But some people think just it just triggers something in them, and they can reflexively do something. So I'm not here to, slag any martial art off. I just think they've all got their merits. And certainly for
Mm.
me, I've taken a lot from my Japanese jiu-jitsu, brought it into my Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and it's given it that little flavor, which I quite like.
Oh, excellent. That's really good to hear. So you've discovered then you've gone into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu now. You've been ragged around and you're in survival. Well, that says the first year is
Horribly abused and
survival.
beaten
That's what
for years and
so,
years.
someone told me. They said year one is just survival. I was like, okay. And you're now because again being a black belt in something and moving to a different discipline, I think can be quite a
Humbling, very humbling.
humbling. Yeah, very humbling. And some people can accept that, and some people I imagine don't like that because they're a black belt, and you should respect that as they're getting arm locked by a white belt or whatever. I don't know. But like there is that sort of thing, like you say, that humbling bit of it, and you've kind of answered my question there. How was your journey from that? So the black belt's come off, the white belt's gone on, and you're moving across into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu now. What are you finding? I'm glad you said humbling because that's good. But but how are you finding that as you're moving up through the ranks
Very
in
tough.
this
My
branch of Jiu-Jitsu?
yeah, I'm not gonna lie, it was tough, but I just enjoyed the fact it was tough. I don't know if it's just a bit of like I needed it. I needed that humbling every day because you can get a bit complacent going through the ranks of some traditional martial arts where your test is to turn up to grading day. Your instructor says, do this move, you do the moves, you pass it, and you get a new belt. There isn't really that in BJJ, not as far as I know or how it should be done. The mat doesn't lie. You turn up and you have to just try and apply yourself against
Yeah,
all the running partners. Okay, we know that. And for me, that was just so awesome. Again, we're talking, I've been doing martial arts since I was 18, remember, where you just turn up and you do the test and you get the belt. Whereas here, the complacency doesn't just goes out the window. So I actually enjoyed that. Maybe it's a bit like that.
no,
Some
it's a
people
good thing.
that's
It's the
I just
challenge of it, I
like
guess.
the
Yeah,
fact that I was getting beaten up day in day out. So, and also bear in mind I'm quite small. I'm only 5'6", and I weigh 9 stone. So to some of your imperial listeners,
yeah,
that's 135 pounds, and 5'6". Tiny. Look at me. I'm very skinny, right? Even though I go to the gym, I do lift. I'm still really skinny and puny. And that used to annoy me because I thought, well, how am I ever going to progress in BJJ if that's all I've got? And these guys who just have maybe 10 kilos on me, and maybe they just go to the gym and lift, they're just destroying me. Um, you just have to trust in the process, and that's what I did. And I had really good instructors who gave me lots of room to explore, to try, to repeat, to drill, and also be creative, to cross train, to watch lots of instructionals, try to compete as much as I can. And just through hook or by crook, I found a way that works for me. And that I think that's informed how I train jiu-jitsu today, which is still very much a small person, defensive orientated, not very reckless or forward-minded jiu-jitsu player when I'm playing it for sport, right?
Yeah.
And I think some people might poo-poo that and say, well, if you're defending, you're not winning a match. And fine, that's a good point. But I'm still using jiu-jitsu. I'm defending myself.
Yeah.
You're going to have to work very hard to get a submission on me. That means I've kind of got some moral victory, to use a Helio Gracie style misquote. For me, if I don't get attacked by the bigger guy, it's a moral victory for me. And I've always had that mindset, and that single thought has carried me through these 22 years. And now I'm in a position where, although I'm quite old now, I'm 56 this year. And so I have age against me, I have my size against me, but I have knowledge. I have 22 years of knowledge. So I do the best I can. So I roll with all my students, and some of them are tough rolls, and some of them I can do a lot with. Uh, but I feel that like the me of 15 years ago would not even be able to hold a candle to them because I'd always blame the fact that they're bigger than me, stronger than me. Whereas now,
Mhm.
I don't think that's the problem now. I'm quite comfortable defending and then counter-attacking from there. So that's how it's informed how I am now as a jiu-jitsu player and practitioner. But obviously as an instructor, I'm knowledgeable in all aspects of it.
Yeah.
You know how to submit. I
But
do know
you're,
how
but
to belt.
yeah,
I do know how to do all that
but in
as
your own
well.
personal game and strategy. Yeah, no, that, yeah, I get you.
If you and I
What
were to
about then?
roll, I would just let you try and attack me, and I would just see if I can bust out of it. And that's the way it's always been for me. It's a bit negative. It doesn't win you competitions. I did do a competition 2 years ago where I thought, let's see if I can defend all the way through, and then in the last minute get a submission. And I successfully. This is like my s- black belt masters 4 or 3.
Yeah.
And he was trying everything. There's a video of it on YouTube. It's quite funny. All I did was turtle up and move from side, and it's been and when I nothing happened, I didn't get submitted. So when the ref held up the other guy's hand, quite rightly, because he was the one looking like he was attacking and I was doing nothing, I counted it as a moral victory because but you didn't submit me. So it's kind of like a silly personal
Well,
friction.
no, no, but that's, I
To
think,
the hardened sports person, I'm a loser, and I quite happily accept that.
but that was a Helio thing, wasn't it? About like, yeah, but you know, you didn't actually beat me though. I can't
Yeah,
remember again. I'm
yeah.
paraphrasing it. It was word something like that.
He did have a broken
I
arm, but he
survived.
didn't have apparently,
Yeah,
against Kimura.
but it didn't.
Yeah, I kind of take those heroic stories to heart, and I'm thinking, see, you didn't beat me, so therefore I win. What's that logic?
So, so what about then? So, as I say, you're moving up for the ranks. Are you competing as well, or is it just in the gym practice? Is competition something that you looked at, or
Yeah, so
was
when
it
I got my
something you
black
just
belt
sort of went through?
when I got my black belt in 2015, the first thing I wanted to do was set up my own club, which is what I did. And then after a
Hmm.
few years of just settling in, I knew that if I was teaching, I would get better. One of the struggles I think a lot of higher grades have is a little bit of imposter syndrome, especially when they get a new belt. But also, there's more of a need to do their own stuff, especially at brown, possibly at purple. And in some club structures, there just isn't that space allowed for higher grades to um, creatively move on and do their stuff. So I wasn't
Yeah,
quite expressing that, but I think in the back of my head, I realized turning up to class and learning the same stuff that would appeal to a white belt is not very progressive for me. I thought starting my own club would allow me to go back to basics, really, really fine tune the stuff that I wasn't good at. Because if you teach it, you have to obviously have some awareness of it to be good enough to
yeah,
teach. So that was good. And by and large, that was helping me enough to a point that after about 3 years of running the club, I felt confident to compete as a black belt. So I entered, I can't even remember the tournament. It was either the National Masters or the English Open, one of those. And it
mm,
was just one match. It was me and a person called Mark Walden. Now, I don't know if you know Mark Walden, but he's one of the first black belts in the UK. So he got his black belt probably when I first started jiu-jitsu.
yeah,
He had he already got 15 years over me on experience. So he's one of the founding Brits, and he's got many affiliations under his name. Anyway, when I saw his name come up, I shat myself because I thought, here I'm a freshly minted black belt. And I've got someone who's been a black belt for as long as I've been training. I just didn't expect that I would even get anything on him. I thought he would wipe the floor with him. So when the match comes, we shook hands and then we started. Um, I just went into my default defensive shell mode.
Mm.
I thought, well, I'm going to make him try and pass my guard first. And then when he passes my guard, I'm going to just not be submitted. To me, that would be a win. But what I found was he didn't pass my guard. You could guarantee he knows how to pass guard. He's like one of the most experienced black belts in there.
Yeah.
I'd so downplayed my own ability, so to speak, um, that afterwards we shook hands. And by the way, he won the match because he looked like he was passing guard, but he didn't actually pass my guard. But I was just holding guard. So it was the referee's decision. But
Yeah.
I was really scratching my head. I thought, how am I able to hold my own in brackets against one of the most experienced black belts in the UK? How? How is that possible? And so I didn't have any gauge because, I was teaching white belts,
Mm.
and my sparring partners were my white belt students, right?
Yeah.
But we exchanged some nice words. He complimented me, and we've been in touch ever since. But it dawned on me that maybe I am what I have in my head and my body is working. It is an ability. I shouldn't downplay myself so much. So that was really nice. And since then, I've done three or four more competitions. Not very prolific. Obviously, being very small and also elderly, there aren't that many people to match up with. So often I have to go up a weight and down several age divisions, and I just think, after a
Right.
while,
Tell
you
me
think,
about it.
yeah, and after a while, you just think,
Yeah.
how motivated am I to compete? At the moment, not very motivated to compete. If I see someone who I think is a good match for me, I think I've got one more good one in me. I want to do one more
Yeah.
thing before I turn 60. How about that? How about we put this in the podcast as my little
That's a good goal. Yeah.
and my record to date as a black belt is one win, one submission win, and half a dozen losses. And I'm proud of that one win. Again, to me, it's a moral victory that little old me, who's an amateur hobbyist black belt, can get a win at black belt level. Ignore all the losses, right? You know what I mean, right? I
Yeah.
think
No. No.
my
No.
experience,
100%.
my
And I
experience is
think
so different from 90% of your average, workaday hobbyist practitioner of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu all around the world. We see
and
all
I,
the champions fighting, we see your Polaris and ADCC, and it's great to aspire to be like that. For you and me, obviously I'm not casting aspersions on you. I don't know what your game is like, but I'm assuming you're a hobbyist grappler, not a
oh
professional,
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right?
I'm a school teacher by day.
Exactly, right? So our life is this. You turn up, you go
Yeah.
to a competition once in that year. If you get a victory, my God, it's all there. It's a memory to savor, right? But who cares? Who cares that you lost?
No, that's it. It's all thing
We
on
should
it.
strive
And I
to be
think
better, of course, and we enter competition to try and win. But that's the reality. Not everyone's going to win. And so anyway, I'm proud to just talk about the
no, I think you actually touched on something really important there as well. Is the sort of the mental aspect of of jiu-jitsu and competing as well, because I've done it myself. I've been in there and I've defeated myself halfway through the match in my own brain, going, "Oh no!" Again, and suddenly, "Oh, I've got out this. Oh, what should I do now? I haven't thought of that, And you just like because you're like, "Oh, this is it. He's got me," or whatever. And I think sometimes, or he's bigger. He's because like mine, I'm ultra heavy. I'm 48. I'm 49 this year. Most times, if I got someone who's 15 years in the close to me. That's good. I mean, the other time it was like a 21-year-old who was like, I'm going to be in the UFC. I thought, that's great. Good for you. Didn't last long, but but it is what it is. But I think sometimes, like you say, you've already written yourself off before you do it. I mean, do you
yeah. I
find
think
that as a
yeah, that's a massive part of it. Maybe it doesn't go away, maybe it does, but only through repeated exposure
Mm.
to putting yourself out there that do you able to handle that. But no, I love all aspects of BJJ. When I compete, I don't get nervous. I just, I'm quite happy to do it. I love teaching. I love just rolling. I love being an uki for someone. You know what I mean? I just
yeah,
love all aspects of it because to me, it's just life is short, man. If you're not enjoying jiu-jitsu, maybe find something else because
Yeah.
you've just got to
Definitely.
embrace the entire sport, the whole lifestyle aspect of it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the way you'll get the most out of it.
So you were saying you've moved up through jiu-jitsu and you got your competition going. What made you, well, you hinted at a little bit to sorry, what made you want to open your own school? Because, you said you got to, you want to sort of do your own thing and open your own place, but, was it the risk? Because, there's a lot of school, I mean, nowadays, especially, I mean, when I was a kid, trying to find a school was a battle in itself, even in like within about 100 miles. Now there's one on every corner. It's gone Costa Coffee, like, and you're thinking, right, I'm going to open my school as well now. What
Especially in
made you
your
want to do
area,
that? And
especially in Southampton. Is it Southampton? There's
yeah,
loads
but
there now.
it's probably a co-op more than a Costa. Actually, it's the first thing I can think of. The co-op seem to buy everything lately. But what was it? Yeah, what was it that made you want to sort of open your own school and then obviously work out what you're going to teach, what you're going to deliver? What was your vision
Yeah,
for that?
no, I mean that's a fair question. So I was at Mill Hill for with Nick Brooks, who passed away by the way a couple of years ago. But Nick Brooks is a legend on the UK BJJ scene. He himself got his black belt from Roger after only 5 years. I mean, Nick was just an absolute prodigious talent in the
Mm.
master division. Anyway, he ran Mill Hill BJJ for many years, and I was there probably a good 10 years. So he graded me from blue to black belt. But as I said earlier, after purple and during brown and the early part of my black belt, I felt I needed just something a bit more of my own thing to do. So I thought teaching would number one get me better, and also I wanted to put a stamp on a place that teaches jiu-jitsu near my home because Bill Hill
Hmm.
was a bit far. And my home is in Boreham Wood, which is a town near to Watford. And it didn't have any Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu clubs. So I thought, well, if I get in there early, then that's a fuck off to anyone thinking of
Yeah, no,
there,
definitely.
right?
Yeah.
And I thought getting in my black belt would legitimize it a little bit better, a little bit than if I was a brown belt. So that was really just to get a foot on the territory and stamp my on my turf.
Yeah,
So
that's it. Market, get your
the
turf.
irony is, one of the black belts who teaches at Mill Hill at the time, Ed Ingermills, he also lives in Bournemouth. So when I opened up my club, he hadn't heard about it, and he later contacted me going, "You fucking bastard! You opened up a club on my turf." And I said, "Hello, it's my turf." And then we had this little jokey argument about whose turf. I mean, he had no intention of opening a club in my area, but
Yeah.
anyway. So I did that, and I also, as I say, running my Japanese Jiu-Jitsu club, I always had that urge to teach. I think teaching is a calling. I'm not saying I'm good at anything, but I just love doing it, right? I love passing on knowledge, sharing, and interacting with people. So that's what I wanted to do, and it grew and it grew and grew, and it was really really popular. And then COVID happened, so that's where things stopped and things were talked about with my business co-owner of the club, and things changed, and now we're a full-time Roger Gracie affiliate. Whereas when I ran the club, it was just a twice a week hobbyist renting the side of a scout's hut, with no heating in winter type of amateur affair. But my friend
Yeah.
Sandy, who's also a black belt, proposed the idea that he convert this into a full-time 7 days a week club. And since he was investing his money, that he would take over and become the head instructor. And I just said, that sounds great to me. You take on all the burden, and I just become one of the regular,
Yeah.
rota instructors, which perfectly suits me fine. So that's how it's been going since COVID, and that's where I am now.
Okay, but was there anything in particular you wanted to maybe put into the curriculum of this club that maybe you thought was lacking elsewhere, or something really in particular you thought, right, as I open this, we need to focus on this part of the game or
Yeah,
that
I mean,
part of the game?
obviously, I apart from one of my friends who joined, who was a good purple belt, everyone else was a brand new starter. So it was
Okay.
the techniques taught themselves. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
this week we'll do mount. Next week we're going to do an armbar from the mount. The week after we're going to do escapes from the mount. And very quickly you form a fundamentals curriculum which lasts maybe 10, 12 weeks. So each week is a different position and a different thing. And the irony is, not irony, but the lovely harmony of that is that fast forward 10 years, this full-time academy we're in, we still follow that same curriculum. You
That's
start
good.
off, let's start off in close guard week, and then the next week is passing close guard, and then next week is half guard, and then passing half. So it's very easy to break that down in that logical, systematic way. And that's how I started almost from day one. I thought, okay, let's do that. I didn't even write it down. I thought, right, this week I'll teach blah 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 because I didn't cover that before. And after a while, I did write it down, and it became a syllabus of positions or
Hmm.
starting points. I think it's almost impossible to say once you start getting more experienced guys mixed in with like newbies and black belts turning up every now and again, you can't really teach a set curriculum, in my opinion. You have an idea for the theme of that week, right? Guys, this is back control week, and it could be anything because that can encompass all sorts of things. And then you adapt accordingly to who turns up. So if you've got complete beginners, goes, right, this is back control, seatbelt grip, hooks in, right?
Yeah.
Black belt turns up going, right, what you need to do is do a rolling back tape, blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? You can really tailor it to who,
Oh,
to
that's good.
so that was so I didn't really it wasn't hard to decide what to teach and how to teach it. What was hard is that 1 hour class is just not enough, and it was a struggle to get more slots in because, as I say, I was only renting a hall, and other people used the hall. Towards the end of our tenure, we were sharing the hall, and the people who came in straight afterwards was the English Martial Arts Association. I don't know if you know anything about English martial arts. Fascinating thing. They really, really study ancient medieval texts on all the weapons like halberds and cleavers and giant swords and
Mm.
spears and lances, and they practice how to they make their own weapons, and they practice how to use them as the tradition would dictate according to these manuals.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. Anyway, there's us, putting our mats away with our little white pajamas, and then walking in with giant swords and helmets and things like that. All right, chaps. When are you going to join our jiu-jitsu club? When are you going to join our sword fighting club? So, well, it looks a bit rough to me. Just, not wearing that fancy uniform. It was lovely banter, and I did actually end up trying a few of their classes, and it's pretty hardcore actually. They really bash each other around, so I really enjoyed that.
That's
So,
cool. I
I
did
think
see someone, as I say, someone sent me a clip a while back, and there is some sort of medieval sword fighting in an octagon now. I think you can actually
oh,
do that.
really?
Yeah, there's someone sent me a clip on
Wouldn't
YouTube
surprise
or
me.
something. Yeah, they're trying that out now.
It wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me. So,
But
yeah, so that club originally was born with BJJ. After COVID, it became Roger Gracie South Hearts. And a lot of the original members are still training with us. That's really lovely to see. Some of
that's
those have
excellent.
been graduated to black belts now. There's a couple of browns, a couple of purples who were with my original crew. People take time out and whatever, aren't consistent,
Mm.
but by and large, I've got a core nucleus of guys who stayed with me, and of course, a lot of newcomers have come in since then. Um, and that's just wonderful to see. For me, I think jiu-jitsu is a people business. I think if you like people, you get on well with them, and you can communicate with them, and you enjoy interacting with people, then I think that comes through in your coaching. I like to think that I have that. A lot of people say that when I teach seminars, they really enjoy it, not because of the techniques, well, because of the techniques, but also because of me. I put on a little bit of a show. I do comedy jokes and just make a little bit of self-deprecating humor about myself, and I tell stories and anecdotes, and 22 years of jiu-jitsu is a long time. I've got a lot of stories in my head, so it all
No,
comes
no,
down
that's
to
fair enough.
yeah, no,
But one
people
thing,
seem to like
oh,
them,
God.
and I'm a nobody. I'm not a world champion or anything. Why am I getting seminars? It's just I guess because I'm a funny guy. I'm the weird spectacled geeky guy,
Well, this is going to sound weird, but let me finish. This is what leads me on to my next part. You've got this club, you've got your black belt, your jiu-jitsu's gone fine, but also, you know, there's some pretty fine artwork coming along here. Where did
Yes.
the tag team of jiu-jitsu and the artwork start to appear for the Meerkatsu stuff that people will see online and around and on clothings and posted everywhere. It's brilliant. So where did
Cheers,
that
man.
come from?
Cheers. Cheers.
As
Well,
someone has to say, I'm a hardcore like Marvel comic book fan anyway. So like going back, George Perez, John Byrne, all that sort of stuff, all the different artists and stuff. So some of this, yeah, it's brilliant stuff.
Nice, nice. I'm very, very pleased you said that. Thank you very much. Well,
No, no.
I've always just loved drawing. That was my passion as a kid, right? But having quite strict Asian parents, they wanted to, like I said, they wanted me like an academic, so I wasn't
Yeah.
allowed to do art. So I never did art as an academic. Following, I actually went on to do sciences at university, but anyway, it's by the by. So, but I always had that joy of drawing. I've always created artwork, even through university, even through young adulthood. I did try and sort of pitch myself as an illustrator for magazines and greetings cards, and I actually got a couple of gigs. You know, if you just keep knocking on doors and showing them your portfolio,
Hmm.
somebody will give you a little bit of a break. I mean, they fizzled out in the end because it's without the internet, it was so hard. You just literally are knocking on doors, showing them your portfolio, and
Yeah.
most
Got
people don't
those.
have the time, or you know, they're just not. It's not the nice way is just your style is not what we're looking for. That's a nice way of saying your shit, basically. Um, I've always had that, but stop drawing. I just do my little cartoon drawings to anyone who's interested. And then I think the biggest breakthrough came was when I was blogging about my early jiu-jitsu journey. And we're talking maybe early 2005, 2006. I started a blog. I just invented a name called Meerkatsu just because I needed an original name that wasn't used by anyone
Yeah.
else. And it's a compaction between katsu, the word katsu curry, and meerkat. Just two things I liked and
Yeah.
thought up immediately on the spot, joined it together and became Meerkatsu, which has served me very well, actually. It served me very, very well as a trademark and a brand identity, which was not in my intention at the time. It was just simply to find a handle that I could use on the online forums. So I started a Meerkatsu blog. We just talk about, hey, I've just started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, blah, blah, blah. Oh, by the way, here's some silly drawings. And the next entry was, here's this and that. And then that was embryonic internet. So blogs were actually read and popular, and people did like
Yeah.
follow. So
I can
me,
remember those days.
yeah, there's probably about at the time, 2005, 2006, there were probably about a dozen good, regular, reliable BJJ bloggers who would just talk about BJJ and had a really good following. I don't know what killed it off actually. It just almost one day it just killed it off completely. So you just don't really get BJJ bloggers anymore.
It was probably once the sort of MySpace came in the social medias, I'd imagine, and then everyone started posting it on there rather than going somewhere else.
Yeah,
Because it
I think
killed a lot of things, didn't it? The social media.
yeah, yeah. I don't know. Anyway, that's how I
Yeah,
cemented
that's yeah,
my amateur reputation as a keen writer about BJJ who always also draws. But I think the pivotal thing was that I was entrusted to design a rash guard in, oh my God, 2011? 2011 by Tatami Fightwear, who's only a few years old at the time. Tatami
hmm
I think, started in 2009, something like that. And so Tatami, who were like trying to push themselves as an up and coming brand, they saw my blog actually, and they saw my drawings, and they said, "Listen, Seymour, do you want to draw something for a rash guard? We'll print a few just as a sample and show them off on our website." I said, "Yeah, it'd be fun." So that's where the honey badger came. I just drew a honey badger design. Um, it didn't even look like a honey badger, to be honest. I didn't really make that much of an effort. It just looks like a rat. But anyway, I made it as psychedelic as possible, loads of swirling colors and crazy stuff. So I said that to Tami, yeah, whatever, we'll make a few. But I tell you what, put it on our website, and if we'll do it as a pre-order. I said, okay, that's probably better because you don't know how many he's going to sell. You know, it could be like five or six, or it
yeah.
could be 100. So they put it on the pre-order, and I shared it on the forums, and people went nuts for it. So launch day happened. So many people went to order the Honey Bunny rash guard. It broke their internet server, and they couldn't get the
Nice.
orders in. So they were calling me out, going, "I've got slight problems, Seymour. The servers had too many inquiries." And so again, I talk about moral victories. To me, that's a moral victory of how popular I am, or I was at the time. That I broke the internet trying to sell a rash guard, right? So
Oh yeah, no, definitely. You broke theirs.
probably the truth is they didn't really buy enough bandwidth, right? So it was probably more of a technical thing. Anyway, that sold really well, and it hasn't stopped since then. I've just been doing endless rash guard designs, gi designs, t-shirt designs, some academy mascot designs, lots of stuff. Eventually, I decided that, or it was put to me that I should really focus on my own brand because that was now famous enough to sell my own
Yeah.
merchandise rather than freelancing for other companies. And that's what I did. That began in oh, damn, I completely forgot. Must be about 2015, 2016, something like that.
Hmm.
The first Meerkatsu products started coming out, and that's the way it's been going ever since. So I'm really, really happy with that, how that's gone. But as I say, I'm just a doodler. I'm just the kid drawing in the textbooks when they should be listening to the teacher.
Nah,
I don't do
well, it's
anything.
amazing stuff. And if
Don't have
anyone
any
hasn't
formal art training,
seen it, do
Also,
check
I'm
it out.
colorblind, so I can't see shit. And uh,
Well, that could be
how
part of the
people
unique thing of the colouring and stuff.
how
So,
people buy them is every success is a miracle to me. Honestly.
so how do you go about? So say like, do you just do it in lines? Have you got certain things? Is there like in a minute, are you going to drop like a summer line on us, and then will there be a winter bit, or is it as things come to you? Do you think okay, we're going to
Yeah,
do
I
that
think
one
if I
now?
was, yeah. So my business partners are Scramble. You might be aware of them, and
Hmm.
they basically run my store. I send them my designs. They use their factories and their warehouse to make them and store them, and all the sales front is basically their people running it.
Yeah,
So all I do is send them the design, they make it, and then but it's up to me to market it, so to speak, if you know what I mean.
yeah.
And then at the end of each month we look at the sales. So it's very, very hard for one single person, me, to come up with fresh designs all the time, especially when you're working on a side hustle basis. That
Yeah,
being said, I've
and
still managed to get 3 or 4 products out per year, and that just enough to keep ticking along.
no, that's good, and it's all good stuff. So again, the link will be in the show notes. Do go and check it all out, people. But so from that, because obviously you're not busy enough, you want to then write a book.
Yep, yep, the book. Shall I show my book now? Here we go. Let's have a look.
Yeah, show the book, show the book. Look at that, in
So,
all
in
its
case you don't
glory.
know, which is surprising because I've been wanging on about for about a couple of months now. Uh, this book is something I first started as an idea a couple of years ago. I can't even put a date on it because I started drawing these kind of drawings, these line art drawings, just
Yeah,
for fun, really.
because wasn't it initially? It was. I'm sure I read somewhere or saw on anything. Wasn't it just like a joke cover at one point, and then it kind of everyone
Yeah,
was
so
like,
this
"Yeah, I'll
book
have
you
it."
see here, I did it as a joke cover on as an April Fool's. Oh, before COVID, so it must be 4 years ago, 5 years ago, right?
That'll
Because
teach
I
you.
needed every April I do an April Fool's, and I just thought this would be funny, and you can get those 3D mock-ups. So I did a drawing like this. Is not this drawing, and I just put Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, instruction manual. I thought, guys, my new book is finally launched, and I just put it out there. I thought, ha ha ha. And rather than everyone going, yeah, nice one, Seymour, that was a funny joke, I had hundreds of comments afterwards going, that is amazing. Where can I buy the book? And I thought, oh my God, they're serious. They actually want a book that looks like that. And I thought, yeah, I can't be bothered. I ain't got time. But I kept on drawing these little drawings just as a personal, it's once you get obsessed with something, you just keep doing it. And I put some words to it. And then I started showing off dummy pages. And let me find one of the dummy pages. The first dummy page I showed was the triangle one. So triangle attack. Let me see. So there we go. So I drew this one quite a while ago, and I wrote just some text. I'm not a writer, really. I'm not a very good one. But I just wrote what I thought with the triangle, how to describe the triangle. And I just did a dummy page, posted it on the internet, on my social media. And again, it got amazing amounts of likes, shares, comments. Really, really well received. I got, oh, I could be onto something here. And so I spoke to a couple of friends of mine who are writers or they have some writing experience. I thought, do you think you can help me on this project? They said, well, yeah, okay, we'll try. And so we wrote a few more dummy chapters, and suddenly the idea for a book was coming along. Um, but to make a book, you need hundreds more of those, right? And each one was already be taking me an eternity to create. And that's where Graham came in. Graham is my writing partner. He's
Hmm.
here. Graham is a black belt who teaches in Gracie Barra Keynsham, which is near Bath. And I met Graham a few years prior, just at a seminar, But I knew that he was some sort of writer, journalist, editor for technology magazines. And he approached me actually. He said, "Look, I saw your page that you posted on the Triangle, and your writing is all wrong. You misspelled this, the grammar here. There's a space here you didn't need, and this needs." And he basically gave me an absolute beatdown on my writing ability.
As an
And
English teacher, I can.
yeah, when someone criticizes you, bearing in mind that I didn't ask for it, when
Yeah,
someone criticizes you, you can react two ways. You can either go, "Well, fuck you," right? Or you can go, "Fuck you, but I am listening." So okay, tell me more. Okay, tell me how would I correct this? Because, well, let me just rewrite it for you. And he rewrote it, and I thought, yeah, this is much better. And and sort of through that, we just wrote a few more, and I said, look, shall we make this formal? Let's decide. I'm gonna make this a book, and you are now the official co-author. And he goes, right, but I want you to commit to doing these. I need text. I need them fast. I need the deadlines. We put a deadline on it. We had a
yeah,
plan drawn up. We planned together a complete book map of chapters and techniques and everything. We discussed at length of what we would show. And suddenly we had an editorial team and it became a more professional project rather than a bunch of mates going, well, I've done this drawing. Here's some text. Oh, can now it became a very, very professional project and I threw myself into it. So probably for the past 18 months, every night I was working on the book, filming techniques. So I filmed my students and my training partners and myself doing techniques that were listed in the book. Then I would take screen grabs from the videos so that you could get a sequence from A to B to C to D. And
yeah.
then I would use that as a photo reference. I'd go onto my iPad. So this is where the magic happens, my iPad. And I just draw everything on the iPad, right? And 970 drawings later, 50,000 words later, we had the basis of the book. And you do everything in InDesign, which is a professional page layout program. And honestly, if you know how to use those programs, actually making a book is, I want to say, easy. Not so much easy, it's still very technical, but it puts it in the hands of the creator as opposed to having
Yeah,
to a publishing
let
house
someone else
or a
do it
graphic
and
designer
go
or a
back and
third
forward,
party. Yeah,
whatever. Yeah,
you become in control. It's a bit like it's very similar to how a lot of musicians now, they don't need to sign up to a record company. They can record their own stuff using really good software, at-home software, and put it out there on YouTube or whatever, and build their own audience and start selling their own merchandise and
mm.
records. So the book industry is very similar. A lot of individuals are creating their own books as long as they understand how to use the relevant bookmaking software. And so that was a learning process for us. But once you get started, man, it was an incredible project to get involved in. Just I mean just designing a simple page like this, you have to learn about lead and you have to learn about margins and typesetting and font sizes and pitch sizes. You have to learn about the color and tone used, and we had to print many samples before we got all that right. But it's an incredible thing to get involved in, and making your own book is, I think, one of the most fun projects I've ever done in my life.
No, excellent. Excellent.
Creative project,
I've
anyway.
skimmed through it. Well, obviously, it's a lot too, but I've skimmed through it, and I really like how the layout. I like the flow of it. I think that's the best way of it, and just the way you break down each part because I think it's going to be one of those books. I mean, I'm a blue belt of God knows how many years now, thanks to COVID as well. But I'd like to think I'm nearer the purple belt end, but let's touch wood. But
You should ask your
but it's
instructor.
something.
You should ask your instructor, hey, when am I going to get my purple belt? See what
Yeah,
happens.
no, I won't do that. Yeah, so another 2 years. Um, but no, it's that kind of so someone who's did for me, I think it's one as I was saying earlier, I think it's one of those books that about every sort of 6 months I'm just gonna probably pick it up and just read it cover to cover again because it's the for me looking at there'll be other bits I haven't bit, but like the fundamental parts of it
Yeah,
and
I'll
just
be
those
honest.
little things sometimes that I think people people forget and people overlook because especially nowadays, there are so many. Probably of the well, I don't know, I'll probably get told the younger competitors are so in a rush sometimes to do something that looks great in a 30-second reel on Instagram that they miss the simple steps that they need to actually, get to that point maybe.
Oh yeah, yeah. I
I
mean,
think in just those things in there, I think as well, and as a teacher as well, I could sort of see them as a school teacher. That's the sort of thing I could see it like on. You can have this one if it were, but like on cards as well, like that. And go there you go. That is
all
there
right.
you go. Go
Yeah,
and have a
yeah.
look at that and
Flashcards.
things
Yeah,
like
that's
that.
a good idea.
And things like that. And and just I think I just think it's a really good resource. I think a lot of people will get a lot of different things out of. And again, so that's just me flicking through it for like half an hour to try and read a whole book before this interview.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. We have to have a start and a stop of what to include and what not to include, and we
Oh
decided
yeah,
that keeping it number one, mostly IBJJF legal techniques for a white belt to use. But we did want to stop there. We wanted to give those same white belts room to move. So we do talk about wrist locks and we do talk about more conceptual areas like layers of the guard and
hmm
passing concepts and fight strategy and that sort of thing. So we cover that in the book. We also add lots of historical elements, like in 2003 this happened, in 2024 this happened, and this was a landmark milestone moment in the history of competitive jiu-jitsu, and this particular exponent was famous for this technique. So we try to weave in a lot of a history that, unless you've been doing the sport a long time, a newcomer just simply would not know about.
yeah,
And I don't think we want to lose those landmark moments. Why is the Ezekiel called the Ezekiel? Why was Roger Gracie so good? What was his trademark move? And maybe you don't know. And we've mentioned all these things in the book because they're relevant to the technique that we're showing and the concept that we're showing. And I think you, the beginner or the person who doesn't go on the internet much or whatever, needs to be aware of that. Learn the history, appreciate the art and the sport, because that will make you a better jiu-jitsu person. And one day you'll be an instructor. And we think that this book is a stepping stone along that way, in informing you and making you a better jiu-jitsu person overall. That's the aim.
nah, that's excellent. No, yeah, it is really good. So if anyone is listening to this for the book, where can we get this book?
Well, I have a very simple website, so meerkatsu.com, Meerkatsu, meerkatsu.com. And on the front page, you'll just see straight away, it just says that's the latest product. And you'll see a picture of this book.
Yeah,
Yep. Now, it's a pre-order. So when you buy it, it's 37.99, and then there's shipping fees. When you buy it, you're not going to get the book straight away. You'll get put on a list where our store guys will make note of. And then after 2 weeks, so we only launched yesterday. Yesterday was, I know you're posting this later on,
yeah,
it's the 28th of May. The pre-order window closes on the 11th of June, and after that we don't take any more orders. It closes. You can't get this book anymore. So for 2 weeks, that's the only time you get this book in this format. And then that way we know how many books to print, because I've never done a book of this type before, so we just don't know how many to print. I can sort of make and guesstimate and print a couple of hundred, but what if we've got way more than that? Or what if only 50 people are interested? And then I've got to flog 150 books, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
but if we do a pre-order, and people are used to pre-orders now, especially if it's a unique and interesting product like this, they will wait for it. And that has so far been the case. People have been more than happy to sign up for it, click orders, give us their money, and then we can go to the printer and say, look, can you print up this X amount of books to be delivered? And usually it only takes a couple of weeks. So the delay isn't that long. It's very similar to, for example, a Kickstarter, right? If you've ever signed up to a
yeah,
Kickstarter, you like comics, don't you? You probably there's a lot of
yeah.
independent comic authors who work on Kickstarter, and they say, look, here's the deal. I've got a 60-page graphic novel that I've spent 5 years doing. I want to raise X amount of thousands of pounds. sign up for it, and this is what you'll get. And you have to wait until it's published, which could be many, many months later.
Mm.
But you're part of the
Yeah,
story.
definitely.
I think that's the kind of what we've done there. But I've done it through my store, which, as I said, is run through Scramble. So shout out to Scramble for helping me on this one. And they've never done a book like this before, so it's all new, and we're all learning. And I tell you right now, on day two, this is it's gone through the roof. The sales of this have gone through the roof. It's just way more than I expected. Way, way more by a huge magnitude. So I'm a little bit hyped at the moment. I'm going, oh my God, what monster have I created? And it's only day two, and we've got another 12 days to go. So in a way, I'm so glad
Aye.
now I did a pre-order. So now we know exactly how many to order, how to pitch it, and how to ship it, and how to distribute. So we can really plan the logistics of it, rather than hedging a bet, saying, "Well,
You
okay, let
had
me
the
order
bet.
100."
I'm intrigued though. Did you and your right partner, did you like write a number down beforehand and put it in an envelope just to see who got closest or anything
My,
like
my target was my target was to get 200 sales, because I knew that with some of my sneak previews and teasers, that's how many likes and comments I would get roughly. So I knew I had an
that? Yeah,
audience on social media of about 200. Um, but what I didn't account for is that a lot of people watch it and don't bother clicking like or commenting. They just go, "Oh, that's interesting," and then move on. Because you must have do the same when you flick through social media. Oh, that's nice.
yeah,
Bother clicking like, but you make a mental note of it. The 200 people are the people who decided to interact. Who actually sees it are the 10,000 people who, I'm not suggesting I sold 10,000, but are the
yeah.
whatever, many, many more thousands of people who actually saw it and made a mental note. So when it finally came to going live, um, or it was just crazy. It has gone crazy, and it continues to do
No.
so. It does help that obviously I have posted it on various forums like Reddit and things like that, people who don't follow me. So that's another way of reaching out to an audience. And then I have a newsletter which I've been pushing very hard to email to my sort of more loyal fan base. So you just sort of try all these different avenues, and it's been I'm just so overwhelmed with the success of it. I'm so pleased and happy. And I really hope that when people get them, they'll understand why I'm so proud about it, because it's a real labor of love. Graham and I, we would talk to each other more than we talk to our wives. It's like, at midnight I'd be going, yeah, page 34. Yeah, so we should really change that. Yeah, should we change? Okay, talking ages about tiny little details, moving that sentence there or moving that full stop. Just you can get really, really anal about how detailed you get. And that's not even to mention the proofreading process, which we actually hired someone called Ed Bowen. Shout out to Ed Bowen, and he is a professional copywriter. He works in the corporate industry, creating
Yeah.
brochures and literature. And as a side hustle, he does proofreading for anyone who creates a jiu-jitsu written material. So he volunteered his services, and I have to say been one of the best people we've ever used in the journey so far, because he is so good. He took this book, which, look how thick it is. He went through every page. If you could get a fine tooth comb, then make it finer, because that's what he did. He found mistakes that I didn't even think were mistakes that were possible. Like you see, you can't see on this one, but on all my drawings, they are like, for example, rank bars, and I do the number of stripes. And he found drawings where I had forgotten to do the correct number of stripes, and that's how amazingly detailed he was. As well as some words that the space was just slightly off center, and he found those, and he marked those up. And the thing is, he did all that, and he only took about a week to proofread it. So we got another copy printed up, sent that to him, and he did a second round and found a couple more that he missed first time around. It's just how he had the eye for detail and the patience to do that. I don't know, but for him, it's a calling, and he's very good at it. So we thank him for that one. And I think without that book, if you receive yours, you would find a whole ton of errors. I mean, I gave you a sample, right? The digital sample.
Hmm.
Probably easily see there's a bunch of errors. They're now gone. Those errors, those spelling errors are now gone. Those missed spaced lines are gone, because he sorted those out and we corrected them. And again, it harks back to our professional approach to creating this. We had formed an editorial team, and we knew that we had to put all our resources into creating as high quality a product as we could possibly do, given our resources, equal to, or if not better than, a well-known publisher, or an established
Yeah.
traditional publisher. Because the punter on the street is not gonna know that it's independently published. They just want a book. And if it's full of errors and amateur crap, it just reflects badly, right? And they
Yeah.
pay a fair price for it. By the time it's shipped, you could be paying 50 quid depending on where you live. So I don't want to sell them something that just looks amateurish, especially as we spent so much time doing all the writing it and doing all the drawings. So no, I'm just
No, no,
uh,
definitely.
trying to sell
No,
it
as I
in
say,
terms of the quality aspect.
oh, it is quite. As I say, I've seen what I looked at. As I say, is like there's been a couple of drafts since then, so it's only going to get better. So, I mean, good luck. Good luck. Well, it's already happening, but good luck with the book, and I'll be very intrigued to see how it develops further as the gets closer to the two
I
week
get
deadline.
at the moment it's just this hardback, which we're considering like a limited edition. But who knows? After that, we might do a softback version. There's talk about an ebook version, which I'm not really keen on, but a lot of people are demanding ebook version. And then there's talk about a follow-up book showing more advanced techniques. We don't cover things like heel hooks and knee bars and reaping and all that sort of thing that is part of the modern game or more
Yeah,
professional submission. So maybe that could be an aspect. There's lots of different ways we could approach it. Um, but for now, all mentally, I can only focus on the one product.
I
So
know.
this is
There
the
we go.
one.
Get that one done first. So that was going to be my next question then. So you've got your right. Let me get all your activities right. So you got you're a black belt. You've got your gym that you're running. You got the Meikatsu brand that's going. The book is going. Great guns. Any other targets for yourself? Anything else you want to take on and add to the workload? What else for you? You know, as a coach, as an artist, brand, as an
It doesn't
author.
stop, does
What
it? No.
other any other goals? At least any goals, things that you're aiming for, maybe in the long term, maybe not right now, but once in a year's time when it's died down a bit or whatever, you can drink. Oh, right now I want to do that. You said about a follow up book to this one.
Yeah,
Any other
the
anything
follow-up
else?
book is just something we've been taught. We just haven't even
Yeah,
got any more than just going, hey, we should do a follow-up book. But given that we spent so much energy and time and
yeah.
resources on this book alone, the next one, given that it's more advanced and probably tougher to do, I think would have to kick into the long grass a bit. But for me personally, I just want to carry on teaching and training jiu-jitsu.
Hmm.
Still find time to go rolling uh, with my students, but also with my training partners. My training partners, Jason and Gosha, they have their own little personal home dojo, which since lockdown, every Friday we've been meeting up to just have a solid hour of rolling, and that's been
Yeah.
so important that you just get time to just roll. No drilling techniques, no instructor yelling at you, no one telling you what to do. Just roll. Make mistakes, muck up, have a laugh, try something new that you saw on the DVD. Just roll. And I think that period, this period where I've got to just do that, has been one of the biggest influences in how I do my jiu-jitsu now. It's really improved me. But as far as personal goals, I have a personal goal in that I have a couple of private students, and my aim is to get them rapidly to a level where they can compete and win medals. Um,
Hmm.
a couple of them has expressed a desire to go from where they are currently, which is, hobbyist, grappler, struggling a bit here, a few minor successes, fine-tuning and their game so they have a game that they can approach and use effectively in a tournament setting at that belt and age and weight and gender level. Um, and so I have some ideas of how I approach that, and I think this is what I want to do with you. It's slightly different for how I teach a group class, but I think this would work in a competition setting, because the problem with a group class is that you have to appeal to the mass of who turns up. So you've got a raw beginner, you've got a white belt, three
Yeah.
stripes, a couple of blue belts turn up, purple belt rocks up after warm up, um, and then so okay, right. Today's theme is taking the back from side control, right? And there's a couple of set ways you do it, but you want to move on and do some advanced, and it's a little bit itty bitty. People get something out of it, and obviously we always do sparring as well. And I've also started to add some constraint-led games into it. So set position sparring, where people are given an objective to achieve, which is relatively new thing. It's much discussed. I'm sure you have a guest probably who wants to talk more about ecological training. I say I'm dabbling in it. I'm not fully immersed in it. Anyway,
Hmm.
but the problem with that is that for someone who's competition hungry, who's focused on trying to do well in the competition, you need a different training environment.
Yeah,
So that's my mini project at the moment. I've taken a couple of my private students and I'm focusing just on them. So we're doing privates, where we're just focusing on match winning techniques and rolling and sparring with the aim of specific competition. So everything's timed. We're counting the points, the advantages, everything. We know about the little tricks and the things about how you can trick your way to getting an advantage. All those sorts of things. We're playing around with those. And that's that campaign has just started a few months ago. So my students are who I'm doing this with are only just starting to enter competitions, and so I'm really keen to see how that progresses. So speak to me in a year's time, 2 years time. We'll see how that works. Maybe it will flop. Maybe I'm the worst coach in the world. Maybe that just isn't me. I'm not a competition coach. Maybe that's going to flop. Or maybe what I'm doing has some success. So I don't know. So you always have to find ways to stimulate yourself and find new ways to
yeah.
uh, enjoy jiu-jitsu for yourself and for the people that surround you.
No, definitely, definitely. This is how this started. I think this became a thing of me getting to ask all sorts of
Oh yeah,
people
yeah. You suddenly
and
you
answer
throw yourself
my
into
problems with
things.
jiu-jitsu. Yeah. And that's it. Now, like, yeah, now it's become a weekly thing, and it's going all right. I think, touch
It's
wood.
great meeting
But
people. It's great meeting people, even through the
mm,
medium of podcast. There's that connection that,
no, definitely, and you can
people who
just
don't do
bounce
jiu-jitsu don't
ideas and
understand.
share ideas of things, and what's happening, like at your club and what's happening. You can sort of compare notes and whatever. Yeah, no, it's a great thing. I think it's brilliant, and through this, I've got to talk to some different jiu-jitsu people, wrestling people from all over the world and stuff. And the cool thing about it is that core is still there. It's the grappling thing, it's the jiu-jitsu thing, it's the wrestling thing. We're all speaking the same language as such,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
from different points and looking at it from different angles. And I think that's what I want this sort of podcast sort of thing to be, really. And everyone could get something from it, even if it's not necessarily your if there's a wrestler listening to this today, there'll be things they can pick up on. If there's a jiu-jitsu episode later on, a wrestler might be able to still pick something from that. It's still that's why I went for the grappling part of it because it covers everything, hopefully. But yeah, no, no, it's been really good. It's been, and learning today from like your journey and that it's been good for me as well, just to listen to it. And there's a lot of things I could apply and relate to. So it's again, I think for some people as well, I think you know, it's. I think it's hard sometimes in the gym to go, hey, is anyone else thinking like that? Or because everyone's so
yeah.
like, we're all fighting and we're all tough and we're all hard or whatever. And it's,
Definitely not
does
me.
anyone
I'm
else
not
have
tough.
some, like sort of, but it's, you don't ask those questions in the gym, boy. It's that sort of thing.
No,
It's the,
no.
what I mean? And actually, people do think that, and people have similar thoughts. And no, I think it's very good. I think it's very good. And no, and again, thank you for joining us on this episode. I mean, if people are listening to this, then we've learned about the book. What if they fancy coming to train with you? Where could they, where can they get in touch with you to, what's the best way for them to contact you to
No, just
train with
put
you
me.
or for
I
your
think the
gym?
best way to contact me is on Instagram. For me, that's the number one platform where I
Hmm.
chat the most and where I share content. And you can direct message me on Instagram. I also have an email. So I think through the Meerkatsu website, there's a way to contact me. It goes through the
Hmm.
scramble version and they ping it to me, so it's not direct.
Oh yeah,
But Instagram's the best. Just DM me, and I usually respond quite quickly on there.
cool.
And
And
if you want to
I'll
turn up,
link that in the show notes.
we are a Roger Gracie affiliate, RGA South Hearts. There's always a dash in the
Hmm.
RJ dash South dash Heart. I didn't make the name. .co.uk. That's our website. But we're in Bournemouth, which is there's a station nearby which links to King's Cross. It's about 20 minutes on from King's Cross, 12 minutes from West Hampstead. So very, very easy to get there from central London. We've often had lots of seminars. We recently had Dean Lister turn up. We've had Ryan Hall, Michelle Nicholini, loads of world champs come to seminars to our place. So we're very, very blessed and lucky to have that. But yeah, people can come, and if they let me know in advance, then I'll tell them which days I'm teaching, and it'd be lovely to meet them. And yourself, of
It's
course.
excellent. Yeah, no, definitely. I definitely I'm rehabbing my knee at the moment. Once I'm nearly about a month to go, and hopefully I'll be back at full
Right.
strength. And according to my physio man, who because his exact words were, "This is normally the bit where I tell people that they can't play football anymore or whatever they're doing." He said, "But you're going to be all
Uh-oh.
right." So I was like, "Yes."
Good,
But
good. Thank you.
that was all good. But yeah, no, thank you so much for taking the time, and especially the time that it is at this moment. After such a busy day and all the other things you've been doing day with classes and work and books and probably some
No
drawing
problem.
and
My
whatever
pleasure.
else you want to. Yeah, it's been brilliant having you on the show. So yeah, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Brett. All the best.
Once again, thank you, Seymour, for taking such a big chunk of time to spend it with us. 'Cause I know you're a very busy man. And again, please check out meerkatsu.com. That's meerkatsu.com for his book and all his awesome designs. I've been your host, Brett Summers, and this is now the end of episode 25 of the Grapple of Your Eye show. You can check us out at the grappleofyoureye.com as well as on social medias, Instagram, Facebook, and all the others. If you like to watch our show, it's on YouTube and you can check out new episodes every Thursday at 7 a.m. UK time. If you like to listen, they're available at the same time on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the other various podcasting apps that you like to listen to your podcasts on. So we will be back next week with another guest. In the meantime, stay safe and stay on the mats.